This isn't just about belly aches. It's about anxiety, brain fog, food sensitivities, and even depression, all tied back to your gut. And antibiotics, while sometimes necessary, are one of the biggest culprits when it comes to destroying your gut health. Welcome to Root Cause Holistic Health. I'm Dr. John Harmon, physician, brain health expert, and your host on this no-fluff journey into whole body healing.
And I'm Tracey Green, wellness coach, mom, and co-host. This is the space where we get real about what actually heals, not just what's trending.
If you're done with surface level advice and ready to understand your body, your mind, and your health from the inside out, this podcast is for you.
We're here for the raw conversations most people avoid. We don't sugarcoat, we don't shame. We offer tools, truths, and transformation.
Welcome back to Root Cause Holistic Health, where we dig deep and we get real about the connections between your body, mind, and everyday wellness. I'm your host, Dr. John Harmon.
And I'm Tracey Green, your wellness coach and warrior mom. Today we're getting into a hot topic that impacts everyone, even if you only took antibiotics once. We're talking about the gut-brain connection and how antibiotics could be silently damaging your digestion, immune system, and even your mood.
And this isn't just about belly aches. It's about anxiety, brain fog, food sensitivities, and even depression, all tied back to your gut. And antibiotics, while sometimes necessary, are one of the biggest culprits when it comes to destroying your gut health.
So whether you're a parent managing antibiotics for your kids or just wondering why you haven't felt quite right since your last prescription, this episode's for you. So Dr. Harmon, let's talk about gut-brain axis, specifically the vagus nerve.
Okay, so the vagus nerve being part of the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the opposite of your fight or flight, rules the roost in the lungs, the heart, and gut brain. We can have issues not just in our mental health, but we can have issues in our microbiome. Our microbiome is supposed to make some neurotransmitters that are very, very important for brain health. And if you have leaky gut, you're also going to have leaky brain. We're going to dive deep into that. What does it mean when we say leaky gut or leaky brain?
I'm glad we're talking about that because that's a big word, a big buzzword in the health, especially holistic health. A lot of people hear leaky gut. What exactly does that mean?
Let's say you're making dinner and you're going to rinse off the noodles. So you have this colander and you wash the substances off. That mesh where you have small holes for the water to escape through, but you don't want the other things that you're washing off to get in. Similarly, we have a barrier that's supposed to prevent undigested food particles from getting into our bloodstream. So we have this barrier, and it's basically saying, you can't get in yet, you can't get in yet, you can't get in yet. Okay, now I have some simple sugars, or the fat is digested down into small molecules. Once they start to get absorbed, some of these things actually pass through the cellular membrane, but they have to be a certain size. But most of them have to be only allowed in. Consider your gut barrier as the red velvet rope at the nightclub in New York. You get in, you get it. Nope, not you, you get in. So we're going to let certain things into our bloodstream. Why is that so important? Because anything smaller than a certain measurement is not seen as a foreign invader. And I believe the measurement is 6,500 Daltons. It's a measurement on the atomic level. If it's bigger than a certain size, your immune system says, you're not supposed to be here, attack. And now our immune system gets involved. What's going to happen if that occurs? Well, the immune system wants to remember what you look like. You might be a piece of broccoli. You might be something that's normally healthy for you, like broccoli or some other food particle. But now Now I have an immune response when I eat that food. And so I get inflammation. I feel horrible. Why do I feel terrible? I'm eating things that are supposed to be good for me. Couldn't be my diet, could it? So now I go to a healthcare practitioner and we talk about these symptoms. They might give you an antihistamine because you're getting a histamine response. They might do other things. But ultimately, if that happens, if your gut is so leaky that you're activating your immune system, what happens is you can become allergic to anything, even preservatives in your food, even, flavorings, anything. And now we have this very, very complex picture of poor health because it can present itself in a myriad of different dysfunctions, from sinus issues to gut issues, diarrhea. You might get huge bloating shortly after you eat. Well, it's the gut dysfunction has worked its way all the way up into your small intestine and your stomach. You're not supposed to have bacteria in your small intestine and your stomach. If you have dysregulation there, that's probably going to happen. Or you get diarrhea 20 minutes after you eat. I go between constipation, diarrhea, whatever it is, it all speaks to very poor gut health. If you have leaky gut, you have leaky brain as well. And now the same thing can occur up in the brain. And you're on a road to poor health, early onset brain issues like dementia and Alzheimer's because of that leaky brain.
That would be why gut health equals brain health.
Absolutely. They're connected. If you have leaky gut, you will have, if you don't already, leaky brain. And so the approach is focusing on returning your gut to good health. And that's a challenge because now we have all kinds of dysbiotic bacteria. There are good guys and there are bad guys. And when I would do stool tests on people, we would see the column to the far left. These are the good guys. And then in the middle, yeah, they're not good, they're not bad, they're not doing anything harm to you, but they're just taking up space. Uh, and then therefore the good bacteria can't grow. But the ones on the far right in the lab that I used, these guys are actually causing harm. The harm might be these ferment things that you think are good for you and turn them into things that are harmful for you and that further damage our gut, further damage our ability to make the good hormones in our gut. We're supposed to have about 20,000 strains of bacteria, and we take a probiotic that has eight, and then we're gonna limit to eight. I only get eight. That's why it's much better to eat fermented foods, kimchi, sauerkraut, and others, where you get thousands of different strains. This is very, very important. And we'll talk about one very important bacteria that you do not have if you've ever taken antibiotics because you have to get it from mama.
That's exactly what I wanted to read. That was a great segue because I wanted to roll into how antibiotics harm the gut. That's exactly where you're going. So it's perfect.
Yes, so obviously antibiotics can kill bacteria. Different types of antibiotics can kill different types of bacteria. The good guys are aerobic, they're strains that love oxygen. The bad guys hate oxygen in general. And so you have a situation where once your gut is infested, I'll call it infested, by the bad guys, it's what they do or what they produce when they act upon your food, because our food is digested partially by the gut bacteria. There's certain bacteria that put out butyrate that nourishes the lower gut. And so if you don't have those butyrate producing strains, first you got to take butyrate in order to nourish that part of your digestive tract. But back to the battle going on, there is a very good book called Super Gut. And I don't have any connection to the doc who wrote that book. You can look him up. Super Gut. He also wrote Wheat Belly. We have of his video, his interview. We would be happy to send that to you. And he explains in there all about the bacteria that you don't have if you ever had antibiotics. And it's called lactobacillus. Some people call it reuteri. The correct pronunciation, because I speak German, is reuteri. Lactobacillus reuteri, L. reuteri. And you can make your own at home. And that bacteria in large enough numbers is like your Marines, your Navy SEALs. They'll go in and start to say dispatch, get rid of the bad strains of bacteria, but you have to take it in large amounts. That's why you need to make your own at home, get his book or watch the video. You might have to get your first bottle from him of the L. reuteri. But once you make it yourself, you don't have to buy those anymore because now you just use two tablespoons of he doesn't call it yogurt, but it's like yogurt that you make yourself. And then you can actually share that with people so that they can make their own at home. So the video will be accessible with his interview, Dr. William Davis, and also the video where he explains how to make it. I think it's very beneficial. Everyone should be doing it. I do it in my house. Very, very important. The reason I know a little bit about gut health is because that was me. I don't remember many times when I was a teenager and in my 20s and 30s where I actually felt really good unless I was on antibiotics because of all of the sinus problems I had. So that's another topic, but replacing the good bacteria has been huge for me. And this is one of the reasons we share it on this podcast.
So is that what you'd recommend someone do if they had even one dose of antibiotics?
If you've had antibiotics once, amoxicillin, that's what they give for, ear infections and things for kids. It wipes it out. You have no more. And you have to get it from your mother. That's the source.
So restoring gut health. So other than making your own, what about lifestyle changes? Probably eating better, exercising.
Yeah, absolutely. So you might ask yourself, what are things that I can do, some simple things at home or in my life, so that I can help not just protect my gut, but also restore my gut microbiome? Well, there are some changes. Here's one of a lot of people listening to this now and in the future are going to say, oh my gosh, I had no idea. But when we have stress, no shocker, there are hormones that kill the good bacteria. Adrenaline kills bacteria. That's why a lot of the adrenaline is secreted in our gut. Why? Because it instantly gets out into our bloodstream. And so we have this adrenaline rush, and we also have cortisol when we're under stress. All of these things inhibit the good bacteria in our gut. Also, sugar. Sugar has so many detrimental effects on so many of our systems, our organ systems, but it gets dumped in the gut. And then you're going to have the bad guys, wee! But also, those bad guys can ferment sugars like this. And we'll be talking on another episode about certain types of bacteria will ferment many things that are in the general population thought of as healthy foods, like garlic and
Oh yeah.
onion and broccoli and cauliflower and those things like that. In general, people view those as healthy foods, and there are ways to find out which ones you need to avoid. So for taking probiotics, obviously, we talked about the one that Dr. William Davis recommends. the L. reuteri. Fermented foods, you're getting lots of different strains in those fermented foods. You have to be careful, and we'll talk about this. A lot of times it's things like cabbage, kimchi, cabbage, and other things. And if you do have dysbiosis and you have certain types of bacteria in your gut, you will actually turn those things, those foods into harmful substances, and you might feel worse. And so, a little bit of a complex picture, and we're going to hope to shine the deep floodlights on it so you can get a clear picture of which direction you need to go. Lastly, things that you can take control of: sleep. There are 5 1.5 hour sleep cycles. In my practice, I have a practice called Clear Mind Idaho, and we help people with sleep issues. I'll look at their paperwork, and they'll say they're sleeping, and they'll make a little note. I just have to wake up twice to go to the bathroom. And I kind of chuckle inside, and I say, well, you're not going through the normal cycles because your body is supposed to shut off kidney filtration. Because if our bladder fills up as an adult, we usually don't pee the bed, in simple terms.
Hmm.
We wake up.
Right.
It says, hey, wake up. And my bladder's full. And then I get up and urinate and then come back to bed and go back to sleep. Well, that interrupted your sleep cycles. So, very important that we get good sleep. Every hour before midnight is worth 2 hours after midnight. Proper sleep hygiene. How are you sleeping? Are you sleeping on your back, your side? If you wake up feeling like you really didn't sleep, you may need to check in to see if you have sleep apnea. We're going to talk about that in one of our episodes. Things you can do at home to find out if you do. If you don't, if you snore and you have a partner and your partner says you snore, you likely have sleep apnea. And your oxygen level is dropping, and coming back and dropping or staying down really low. This is dangerous. This predisposes you for heart disease and brain problems, a lot of different problems. We'll talk about that another time. But those are some of the things, lifestyle things that you can do to help with your gut health.
So, Dr. Harmon, some of the symptoms like bloating, brain fog, anxiety, food intolerances, chronic fatigue, how long could those still be occurring after one use of antibiotics?
How long does a person live?
So that's what I was thinking, because isn't it true that one dose of antibiotics ruins your gut biome for what, a year at least? So you could have symptoms for a long time after taking one dose of antibiotics. This is my favorite thing about our podcast is we're getting to the root cause. So you're bloated, your anxiety, your brain fog, it could be something as simple as a prescription you've taken months ago for antibiotic.
Yes. Yes, and even worse, there are some antibiotics that I would recommend never ever taking. There are things like Keflex and some others.
Interesting, like which ones?
Well, there's Levaquin. Keflex is one of them, and they usually give that for urinary tract infections, but you have to be really careful. But what happens, you could be just walking a year later and your Achilles could rupture. That actually happened to several of my patients,
Oh.
but it destroys ligaments. And if you take it with corticosteroids, it's even much worse. There is high probability of ligament damage. So those are things that we want to warn people to stay away from.
So I think the message, especially to moms, because I remember, I took my daughter to the chiropractor starting when she was 3 weeks old. So my daughter never had an ear infection. She never had any antibiotics, thank goodness. But I went down the holistic route very early, thankfully.
Yeah.
So what's your message to moms out there, especially with little ones? You get a fever, they go to the doctor, they have an ear infection.
I've been a chiropractor for 35 years. The moms who brought their infants in, and I have to tell you, this is a very gentle adjustment. I used a thing called an activator or just a little, push with the thumb. the moms who got their infants adjusted early, I mean, let's face it, that's a small tube they have to they have to go through the chute coming into this world. And there's a lot of trauma. And get their top vertebrae called the atlas, C1. The atlas
Mm-hmm.
is so important. The vagus nerves, that you have two of them, and they come out of some little holes at the bottom of the skull called foramina, and they literally lie on the front aspect of the atlas bone on either side. So if that is misaligned, it could be you could have pressure or traction on that, which affects your vagus nerves, which affects what? Digestion, resting, healing, immune function. A lot of different things can get affected. And I would have babies brought into me, uh, fussy, bloating, lots of spitting up, cranky, crying till 2 or 3 in the morning. And then the mom or dad, usually the mom would bring the child in, and it could be anything from a little misalignment in their collarbone because they came through that chute so fast and then it put that out of alignment, or most of the time it's
Yeah.
their atlas. And
Right.
the baby would be screaming, crying on my table, and I do this little adjustment, and then they just relax and go to sleep. It's one of the most,
Yeah.
I don't want to, I want to say one of the most beautiful, rewarding
Mm-hmm.
experiences in my practice was seeing the changes in this little tiny human being and setting them on the right
Mm-hmm.
course. That's
I love
number
that.
one for a brand new
Yeah.
mom. But then
Yeah.
we want to be careful. First of all, a little bit of jostling around, but tossing the baby around and just be a little bit gentle.
Mm-hmm.
Also, with your food choices. No,
Mm-hmm.
it's not better to have your infant on baby formula.
Mm-hmm.
Mother's milk has the things that that child needs, not only for nutrition, but for immunity. You
Mm-hmm.
give them all of the immunity they need. And also, the gut bacteria travels up into and is transported into your breast milk. So, yes,
Amazing. Amazing.
nursing. I mean, it's the most
Yeah.
miraculous system for taking care of this little human being who came into the world, knows nothing, doesn't know how to do anything. They're dependent on the primitive reflexes. How do I eat? I don't know. Something touches my cheek and I latch on. How do I develop my core strength? I don't know, but something touches my palm. I have superhuman grip so that I can start developing my core strength. These are primitive reflexes that are there for a reason. And as the upper brain starts to develop, it's not that those primitive reflexes go away. It's just that the upper brain takes over and inhibits those, or it's like defaults to that instead of these primitive things because I'm learning how to do stuff. And now I have a little bit of control. It's really a beautiful, beautiful system.
You touched on two of my favorite pieces of advice that I love to give new moms. I get asked all the time how my daughter, who is now 17, how she was so healthy growing up. All these kids around her were always sick, always on prescriptions, this and that. Two things that I attribute to my daughter being so healthy when she was little was one, I took her directly to the chiropractor to be adjusted with an activator when she was 3 weeks old. I had no idea the impact that could have later on in life with not having her get possible ear infections because she never ended up with any ear infections. And then the second thing that I did, and one of my favorite things to share as a mom, I nursed Bella for 3 years. I nursed her as long as I possibly could. And I totally attribute her being healthier with her getting the natural immunities and everything from my breast milk. And I ate really clean during those 3 years. And I was very adamant about it. I wanted to nurse her as long as possible. Of course, I introduced solids. So it was just nursing at night for year 2 and year 3, but it was a solid 3 years that I nursed her. So, like I said, those are two pieces of advice that I love to give new moms: getting them to the chiropractor, specifically getting an adjustment with the activator, and then nurse as long as possible. I love that you brought that up naturally, because that, of course, is a gut-brain tie-in, and it all starts at the beginning.
Can I tell you about a really, really, like, I call them little tender moments in my practice? This mother brought her little girl, 7-week-old baby, and the mother was saying things like, if you can't fix her, I don't want her. I mean, she's screaming almost all night, just screaming, 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 crying, crying, spit up, spit up, spit up, because they get so upset that they spit up. So she handed me this little 7-week-old baby. I have her on my table, and I'm examining the spine. Couldn't find anything. Atlas was okay, the rest of it. And then she was on her back, and I straddled the table, and she was in front of me, feet away from me. And I starting to feel down, and I always feel the collarbones because they are basically the foundation of the big, powerful muscle of the neck, the sternocleidomastoid. It was one of the most surreal yet touching experiences of my practice. As soon as I got down to her little collarbones, she looked up at me like an adult. It was so surreal. She looked up at me with an anxious look, like, yes, yes. And I
Oh,
did some little muscle testing through the mom, the surrogate muscle testing, and I found that her right collarbone was up about a 1/4 inch higher than her left. And I just put my thumbs on there, and it just went a little click, and she just settled down. And the mother came back like 5 days later, and she said, she's sleeping all night.
oh, I
I
love that.
never, I
Oh,
never even touched her spine. I never adjusted her spine because she didn't need it. It
yeah,
was only a collarbone. If your chiropractor doesn't do collarbones, have them call me.
yeah.
It's that important. It's that important. Your gut and your brain will thank you.
Until next time, get to the root cause.
Thanks for tuning in to Root Cause Holistic Health. We're here to help you uncover what's really going on and empower you to take the next step in your healing journey.
Whether you're a mom, a dad, or just someone ready to stop settling for Band-Aid fixes, we hope today's episode gave you something to think about.
If you found this episode valuable, do us a favor, share it with someone you love, and leave a review so we can reach more families like yours.
Make sure to hit follow so you don't miss next week's episode. We've got more honest conversations, practical tips, and root cause wisdom coming your way.
Until next time, stay grounded, stay curious, and most of all, stay connected to what truly matters.
We'll see you next time on Root Cause Holistic Health.